You've probably heard the phrase, a warm team. It's one of those things that we casually say like, yeah, they've got good vibes, or they just click. When you look closer though, there's something a little bit more going on, and it's not just a metaphor. Warmth, real physical, psychological warmth, changes how teams perform. And it starts with a strange but fascinating idea, psychological thermogenesis. Now, thermogenesis literally means heat creation. So normally we talk about it in the physical sense, like your body is burning calories to stay warm. But psychological thermogenesis is something a little bit different. It's a process where your mind, through emotions or connection or purpose, generates energy. Sort of like when you feel excited before a big presentation, or when you laugh with the team after nailing a delivery, you feel charged up, alive, lit up. You feel that heat, and that psychological heat, that's real. And scientists have found that emotional states can actually change the body's temperature regulation. So when we're engaged and we're connected and we're motivated, we release chemicals like dopamine. And these chemicals increase our metabolic activity and our alertness. We literally get warmer. The opposite is true. When we're anxious, disengaged, or isolated, the body cools down, energy drops, and performance will obviously follow. So when people talk about a cold culture or a chilly team atmosphere, it's not just poetic language, it's a warning, it's physiology. Let's zoom out a second. In modern organizations though, especially remote or hybrid ones, that warmth, that thermogenesis leaks away really fast, because working behind a camera puts us one step behind. And then on top of that, the metrics that we use, like throughput or cycle time, these don't really measure emotional temperature. And even when we measure team health, we're more sort of looking at capacity, how people are generally coping, but we don't measure that team warmth. And the other thing is that a cold team isn't necessarily loud. They might not fill in the team health survey the way that is going to reflect their actual feelings. Equally, a warm team isn't necessarily loud either, but you can feel the warmth. And hopefully you know what I mean. When you go into a team that is cold versus a team that is warm, you can feel that warmth in a team that is more alive. You sense those micro signals of engagement. Someone builds on an idea, somebody else laughs at a mistake, someone, a funny comment, etc. There's heat exchange going on. I've experienced this in both senses of heat and cold. Let me give you an example of a cold team. I joined the team and I ran a retro and it fell flat, really flat. And soon after that, I started to discover through one-to-ones and so on, chats and so on, all the issues that hadn't been recorded. When I looked at the metrics before I joined the team, it all looked great. Cycle time looked great, team health looked great, but those warmth factors weren't there. And as a result, lots of issues were underlying delivery. And I, as a delivery manager and the person who is responsible for that team, my state sets the thermostat for that team. I can increase that thermostat, I can decrease that thermostat. And I'm going to give you some examples of ways you can do that in this video. Some of this you'll know already. If you're tense and you're cynical and you're distant, your team will match that temperature within days. The human nervous system will mirror others. We're wired to synchronize emotionally. And the same rules applies in the other direction. If you're open, if you're curious, if you're relaxed, even when there's chaos going on, that warmth will spread and people will start to thaw. You walk into a room that's really heavy, like a sprint retro that ran where things hadn't gone well. That room feels cold, literally. People are closed off, they're guarded, they're waiting for someone else to take the blame. And I imagine you walk into that same room like I did. I said, before I start, I want to say, that was a tough sprint. I know how much effort you all put in. Let's figure out what happened together. Instantly, I've injected the warmth. I've not injected fake positivity, but warmth. That signal that this is a shared, safe space. That shift in a tone, that change in body language, that posture. And once that happens, the real work can begin, because you can't work with a cold team. There's a reason why trust and psychological safety are so tightly linked to performance. Thermogenesis. When people feel safe, their bodies stop preparing for a threat, and that energy that would have gone into defense goes into collaboration. Some leaders that I've seen still operate from that old model. I'm not here to be liked, I'm here to deliver. But that's sort of like saying, I don't need oxygen, I just need to run. Warmth is that oxygen of performance. I worked with a team in the past that was technically amazing, but emotionally frozen. Meetings were polite, lifeless, everything was fine. That meant that delivery was slow, creativity was flat, and you could sense that they'd sort of stopped believing that their work had mattered. Now, with this team, I ran a series of workshops where we talked about the why. In this case, the product we were talking about was helping clients fix their issues. So the passion of the team really came through in terms of what they wanted as a vision for the product, how it would help people. And that was the beginning of the thaw, the beginning of the change. And within those few weeks of these workshops and other discussions, the team started to melt. We were laughing again, we were joking. There was good conversation going on, good challenges going on, and through that sort of appreciation of that new environment, they found energy. That's thermogenesis in action, that warmth creating motion and that motion creating results. So as a leader, as a person responsible for delivery, how do you intentionally increase the team's temperature without burning them out? So the first thing is connection. And I'm talking about a real connection, okay? Not just faking it, but actually asking someone about what they do, about their weekend, about their interests, and actually listening. I've got a senior colleague who actually writes down all these little bits and pieces of small talk. So then a few weeks down the line, they can come back and say, oh, hey, so how is your tomato patch going, for example? So that creates a nice atmosphere. It's interesting to be interested in other people, but B, also makes people feel a bit more human, a bit more as if they're valued not just as a resource, but as a person. And again, that energy rises. All right, secondly, shared purpose. Heat is wasted without any general. Teams that burn the brightest know the why behind what they're working, not just a general mission statement, but a specific meaning that this piece of work, this sprint, this impact. People like to link what they're doing to something bigger. That raises their mental metabolism. This is why my vision workshops that I ran with the team I mentioned earlier really came in handy, really worked, and the team was able to draw out their why, and as a result, was able to get warm. Thirdly, humor. Never underestimate humor as a performance tool. Laughter bonds people faster than any team building workshop and resets the nervous system after stress. A leader who can laugh at themselves signals confidence and safety at the same time. Take that moment to build rapport, build a safe space for humor. And humor can also act as a warning sign. If you crack a joke or someone cracks a joke and nobody laughs, might mean the joke is poor, but it also might mean that actually there's something wrong with the team, something that needs to be worked on, because a happy team is generally a friendly team, and a friendly team will laugh at stupid jokes. And fourthly, rhythm. Warmth isn't always consistent. Delivery isn't always consistent. Teams can't stay on fire forever. That's just a highway to burnout. So what you do is you follow a steady warmth rhythm, follow effort followed by recovery, intensity followed by reflection. Build rituals that maintain that pulse, retros that celebrate wins, quiet Fridays, shared lunches, recognition moments. You just want to make sure that the ebb and flow of delivery is maintained and it's not always push, 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 and it's not always drop, drop, drop. And finally, authenticity. Don't be fake. Nothing cools a team faster than fake warmth. Fake forced cheerfulness, empty slogans, performative well-being. People detect it instantly. Real warmth has that weight. It takes time to build, but it's grounded in that respect and sincerity. That's tough, but if you keep listening to the team, watch out for what works and watch what doesn't work, because different things will work for different teams. Focus on what works, continue down that path, continue experimenting, and you'll get to a place where your team is on fire. Let's look at what this might look like in a tough sprint. Imagine that delivery has gone entirely off the rails, dependencies have slipped, testing backlogs have grown, stakeholders have lost faith entirely. In that moment, the natural instinct is to apply pressure, more meetings, more tracking, more accountability. But all that does is it drains the heat. It makes people retreat into self-preservation. The better move is pause, regroup, acknowledge the frustration, and ask, what's the one thing we can simplify right now? It's not a matter of lowering standards, but you're just reigniting that clarity. You're shifting that team from defense mode into creative mode. And that creative mode creates warmth, and the team can use that collective warmth to keep that momentum alive, even under high pressure. And here's something really fascinating. Studies on social temperature show that people literally perceive physical warmth when emotionally connected. One experiment found that participants who felt socially excluded rated the room as colder and were more likely to crave warm foods or drinks. Another showed that when people held a warm cup of coffee, they rated strangers as being kinder. So our brains can't separate physical and emotional warmth. They share the same neural pathways. So when we talk about warm leadership, it's not fluff, it's actual neuroscience, it's embodied. When you're helping your team feel safe, regulated, seen, you're literally changing how their body regulates temperature. And in delivery terms, that translates to flow. We know that flow happens when challenge and skill are balanced, but the warmth is that medium that allows the balance to sustain. A cold environment breaks flow because people start to watch themselves instead of the work. Warmth dissolves that sense of self-consciousness and it lets people lose themselves in creation, as in achieve flow. Now, of course, warmth needs boundaries. A fire would burn with chaos if not contained. So without boundaries, warmth becomes chaos. And that's where rituals come in. Rituals create that rhythm, and rhythm creates that trust, and trust creates that warmth. Predictable bursts to regulate emotion. The key is, of course, to keep those ceremonies human. And the best delivery managers are the ones who are conducting that energy. They sense when things are cooling and they take small, deliberate steps to warm them up again. And that's really something that's happened throughout history. Cultures that have survived in extreme environments, so Arctic tribes, Viking crews, desert nomads, all valued morale as a survival tool. They sang, they told stories, they honored one another because they understood what I'm talking about here, that external conditions can be cold, but internal warmth is what generates the heat. And you can create conditions where this warmth thrives. As a leader, as I mentioned, your presence is the pilot light. You don't have to generate all the heat. You just have to make sure that spark is kept alive. Check in with people, listen with curiosity, protect their focus, celebrate the small wins, hold those boundaries, but be kind and embody that calm enthusiasm that you want them to feel. So to summarize, really, leadership isn't about control. It's all about heat transfer. Keep your team warm and they'll keep moving, even if they're going through a cold patch. I hope you enjoyed listening to that. Make sure you press subscribe, press like, stay warm, and I'll see you next time.